Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for stopping by today. Today I have a card project featuring some products from Lawn Fawn. I'm going to be using this stamp set. It's called Flamingo Together. I'll also be using the coordinating dies for this stamp set and the big scripty word stamp and die set that I used in a card project a couple weeks back. And I will be sure that I throw in a card in this video so that you can check out that video if you haven't already. But I wanted to show you how you could do some distress ink watercoloring. And more specifically, I really wanted to show you how you could layer up the color to create some more texture in your watercolor. So since I'll be doing a little bit of watercoloring on these flamingos, I have stamped them in some VersaFine Onyx Black ink onto some Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock, and then I went ahead and heat set that. You want to make sure that it's good and dry before you start taking the water to it. As long as the ink is dry, as long as this ink is dry, it will be waterproof. So I've gone ahead and brought in my craft mat here, and I've pushed on a little bit of ink from the Tattered Rose Distress Ink mini cube there, as well as the Worn Lipstick. These are two of my favorite pinks from the Distress Ink line. And you can see here, I'm just taking a water brush and adding the Tattered Rose all over the bodies of the flamingo. Once I get that base color laid down, I'm then coming in with the Worn Lipstick and adding some shadows. Now, when I get the shadows added, I'm kind of just hitting these with a heat tool really quick. This is going to set that distress ink. And once that distress ink is set and good and dry, I'm coming in with the Tattered Rose again and intensifying the color in some of those areas and kind of blending some of it out. Because I'm not using a ton of water over this, I'm really not moving the base layer too much. I'm just adding more depth and dimension to the color that's already there. Now for the beaks, I use the Hickory Smoke Distress Ink, and this is where I really wanted to show you the texture that you could add. So now that I have both of the previous layers dried, I'm taking my water brush here and I'm dipping it in the Worn Lipstick Distress Ink, and I'm just kind of tapping it all on, and I'm being sure that I'm not really blending it out, but this is giving a little bit of texture and the illusion of feathers on those flamingos. And once I get a good base of texture on there, I'm going to go ahead and heat set that once again. And then I have my really cool textured watercolored flamingos there. Now I've taken my die snips and I've snipped apart my dies, the coordinating dies for these stamped images, and I'm just placing them onto the images, and I'm holding them in place with a little bit of the micro pour tape. And then I'm going to take this over to my die cut machine, and I'm just going to run it through using my regular die cutting sandwich. And once I get those die cut, I can go in and kind of fix some of the areas where my watercolor went out of the line. Now I am using the Ranger Dilutions. These are the Diane Reevely paint pens, and they are a really thick, opaque white paint. They're not an ink, so they cover those little boo-boos that I made pretty well. And I'm really happy with the way that those kind of cleaned up after I kind of messed up on them. So now I've taken the Love Ya stamp. This is from the Big Scripty Words stamp set, and I've stamped it onto some Neenah Solar White cardstock in some Hero Arts Pale Tomato ink, and then I've run it through my die cut using the coordinating die, and you can see the really adorable sentiment that I have there. And while I had that die out, I went ahead and ran that die through my die cut machine with some gold glitter cardstock, as well as some fun foam too, because I'm going to use that to add a little bit of dimension to this die cut sentiment. So in order to attach the stamped piece onto the glitter piece, I went ahead and put some liquid glue on the back of that. And now I'm taking those two pieces, adding some Tombow Mono multi-glue to the back of that, and then I'm going to place it on top of the fun foam. Now, because I staggered the first two layers of that, I kind of offset them a little bit so it was like a glitter shadow. It was really easy to line up the fun foam behind that die cut sentiment. I had more room to kind of hide it behind. So now that I have those pieces all ready to go on my card front, I'm going to start working on my card front a little bit. And I'm doing a little debossing on this card front. So you see I have my multi-purpose platform set to the 1 tab, and then I have my bottom cutting plate, my black silicone mat, my paper, my die, and then my top cutting pad, and I've ran that through my die cut machine, and you can see I have a really nice debossed wonky stitch circle on the front of my cardstock. It just kind of adds a place for those those flamingos to kind of be grounded to, or like a base for them to sit in. I kind of like to do this. It's a nice way without adding extra layers to kind of add that grounding place. You could also do some ink blending behind that. That would be really cool as well. And now I'm taking some of the sentiment words from the Flamingo Together stamp set, and I've lined them up along the bottom of my MISTI, and I've stamped them onto my card front using some Hickory Smoke Distress ink. Now, I don't usually use distress ink to stamp sentiments, but I had stamped some pigment ink under it. It was the Avery L. Fog pigment ink, and it wasn't quite right, so I went ahead and stamped it over, and I finally got a color of gray that I liked. So you saw me attach the Love Ya sentiment onto the front of my card front there. And now I've stamped some of these hearts from the Flamingo Together stamp set. And I've die cut them with the coordinating die. And now I'm just adding some foam adhesive behind them and attaching them in various places on the card front. I've put one by the sentiment there, and then a couple of them up by the flamingos as well. So for my card base, I'm using the Basil Card Shop Sugar Wafer cardstock. It's kind of a really nice gray color. And I'm inking up the Bold Diagonal Lines stamp from My Favorite Things with some unicorn white pigment ink from Hero Arts. And then I'm taking my card front and just laying it on there and then covering it with a piece of scratch paper and rubbing it all over so that I transfer that white pigment ink onto the card base. And then I have a really nice striped diagonal detail on my card base. Now, I decided that this really needed a pop of color, and you can see I have the pink and gold. I end up changing that in the end because I really thought this needed a pop of a bright color. So I am using this really bright green ink to stamp the little, these are actually, I think, palm tree tops, but I thought they would make really great like kind of grass for underneath the flamingos. So I stamped those and I cut them out with the coordinating dies in the stamp set, and I'm just attaching them underneath the flamingo's feet using a little bit of liquid glue. So I have this card kind of all assembled together, and then I went ahead and pulled it apart because I wanted to bring in that green in one more place. So this is the Basil Pear Tart cardstock. It is like my favorite bright green cardstock. I went ahead and added a stitch detail along the edge of it using a Pretty Pink Posh border die. And now I'm adding a little bit of ATG tape runner adhesive, and then I'm tucking it under that card front that's attached to the card base. And because I had added the card front onto the card base with a layer of fun foam behind it, I was able to sneak this cardstock piece in without any trouble at all. Then I just flipped it over and trimmed off the excess, and that completes my card for today. I hope you enjoyed this card today featuring these fun flamingos from Lawn Fawn, and I hope you saw how you can really take and layer up your watercolors to create lots of different depths and even some texture on your stamped images. As always, I will have links to all the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube, and I will have a complete list of products over at my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com, where you can see more still shots and find more information. Thanks for stopping by today. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. Leave some comments below about your favorite ways to use Distress ink. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.